Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we're checking out Grenada for the Sega Genesis.
Originally released in 1990, this was developed by Wolf Team and published by Renovation. It came out for the Sharp X68000 and the Sega Genesis in North America and Mega Drive over... What?
I just realized, every time you yell like that, you must get it from your mother the way she yells.
Wow.
Is that going to stop you from yelling now in the future?
Probably not. But yeah, so the Sharp X68000 and the Sega Genesis Mega Drive. Unfortunately, I can't do my exclusive bit. Anyway, this is a top-down tank shooter. You play as a guy fighting against a bad company or something. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter in this game.
Well, considering how early this came out for the Sega Genesis, we were actually pretty impressed with the graphics. Some levels are really uninspired, like take a look at this. The majority of the map is either green or this brown, while others like this plain level look awesome. They really kind of go back and forth, but one thing that stays pretty constant, the boss battles all look pretty good, and we just really appreciate the level of detail in all these boss battles, because some of them might play very similar, but they all look very different. The best thing about this game though really comes down to the fact that you can sometimes have like 30 or 40 enemies on the screen at one time, especially during these spawn locations, and we never really experienced that much slowdown. That's not to say there isn't slowdown once in a while, but for the most part, considering how much is going on the screen, you're not really getting that with many 1990s games at the time, so we gave kudos for that. I gave it a 6 and Jim gave it a 5. When it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 1, because it seems like maybe they had different people working on the level. Like the awesome levels, they would have had a me working on it, and the shitty levels, they would have had a Jim working on it.
Go fuck yourself.
So just for that inconsistent quality, I have to add that beer.
Alright, the sound. I guess I'll start with the easy one, and that's the sound effects, because honestly, they're not that varied. You have your explosion sounds and your shooting sounds, and outside of a few unique enemies, there's no real differences there. The bright spot of this game, though, is the music. And, well, we said it before and we'll say it again, it's inconsistent, but for the most part, it's pretty goddamn good. Some levels can be maybe a little uninspired in the sound composition, but then you get ones, once again, like the plain level, or just random ones throughout the game that just sound so damn good. And the end music during the credits is great as well. So when the game hits its highs, it really hits it out of the park. And when it hits its lows, it's still good, but compared to the good tracks, oh man, can it be a letdown. So, with that being said, Brian gave it an 8 and I gave it a 7. It's still a great package musically. When it comes to beer, I'll just add 1 beer for goddamn. Seriously, the music in the second level is probably one of my favorite 16-bit tracks ever. It's so good.
The control is kind of an easy topic to talk about because I'm sure most of you have played a top-down shooter, and to be honest, this doesn't do much different. You just hold down shoot because you have infinite ammo, and you have your missile button, which, once again, it's infinite, but it just takes a second to charge up. And you can move in any direction you want. You can shoot in any direction you want. There's just something that innately takes a little bit of getting used to with this game. I don't want to repeat the phrase I repeat all the time, but there is a little bit of a sluggishness to your tank, and we won't say it's unfair. We just feel like it might be programmed in there to kind of help you increase the difficulty against some of the more speedy enemies.
Right! You forgot about the button that locks you in so you can strafe.
Yeah, there's a button that locks you in so you can strafe.
It's important, you gotta master it.
So, yeah, strafe.
Alright, just finish up.
That's what your mother said. Ah! But in all reality, if you've ever played a top-down shooter, this is just like all the other ones. Doesn't do anything great, but what it does do, it lets you have a good time with a pretty hard game. So we both gave it 7s. It's not perfect by any means, and I'm not even going to add a beer. It's what you come to expect from most of these titles.
Alright, the gameplay. It might be a dead horse again, but yeah, it's a top-down shooter. Kind of not that much to really add to it. In a way, the game almost kind of plays like Gauntlet, where you have to go through an open map that you can move through as you want, and you have to destroy, well, in some of the levels, these spawny location spawners. Spawn things. Basically, they'll just keep spawning enemies until you destroy them. And once you destroy all of them, the boss enemy will come out, and then you fight him. And rinse and repeat through 9 stages. All the boss fights are pretty unique from each other, and some have some kind of cool mechanics where One, you won't be able to hit the weak spot until he fires at you first. Some you can only damage by banking your shots off walls. Shit like that. There's different power-ups in every level, and while they don't make your tank perform any differently, some can act as shields, some can be these remote shooting kind of box things, some go out there and come back, some have range damage. It's just, every one of them controls a little bit differently, and they work well in the levels they're designed with. The levels themselves can be a little confusing depending on the layout, because some are definitely more lazy-like than others, but it's nothing that you can't really overcome with a little exploration. And exploration's good because you can find more of these weapon power-ups. Overall, the game kind of does one thing, but I think it does it really well. It's fun, maybe it's a little flawed with the intermittent slowdown, and honestly, some of the stages, even in their design, are a little bland, but so long story short, we gave the game 6s. And when it comes to beers, I'll add 2 beers. 1, a happy beer for the inventive boss battles, and 2 for these goddamn assholes in the last level that keep knocking me off the fucking stage. God damn it!
Since this is such an early title for the Sega Genesis, there is some originality here. However, like we've said, it didn't reinvent the wheel. Some of the power-ups, the strafing, and just some of the unique boss battles were some of the most unique. That, and quite honestly, with the music that it plays out, that's what made this game feel unique. The control, the gameplay itself, most of it, it's stuff you've seen before, and it's not really going to make you think, oh man, this was really a groundbreaker for top-down shooters. So, when it comes down to that, I gave it a 4 and Jim gave it a 6. I'm not really going to add a beer because I see what they were trying to do, but it's not really their fault they come off unoriginal.
The replayability. Honestly, at its core level, there's not a lot here. You have the game, you can play through it. It actually defaults to easy difficulty, and there's a bunch of different difficulties that you can play through if you want to challenge yourself. But if you don't want to, then there's not really that much to come back to, outside of maybe trying to set a personal high score for yourself. Unfortunately, there's not a lot here on a technical level to keep you coming back. So, Brian gave it a 3, and I gave it a 4. So when it comes to beer, I'll just add 1 beer for the, well, let's just be honest, the limited replayability.
Overall, this is a pretty damn good top-down shooter, and one that's very rarely talked about when most people discuss the best top-down shooters. We're not suggesting it's the best, but it's probably one that is a little bit underrated. And in all honesty, the thing that stood out the most for me with this game is the music. We mentioned it a few times. I'm not saying it's the best soundtrack ever, but some games seem to have a more lasting effect when they do have a little bit more of a memorable soundtrack. So this is one that will go down like that for me. When it comes to scores, we both gave it a 6. And when we round everything together, it comes out to a 6.2. So it's pretty much on par with how we feel about this game. Like we said, there's plenty of other much better top-down shooters out there. This is probably one that you can get cheap enough that you shouldn't ignore it.
If you want to get it loose, it'll probably cost you between 20 and 30 bucks. Or if you're a Sega Genesis nut collector who needs a complete in box, it'll probably be around full price. Is it really worth it? Well, honestly, I'd say emulate it first before you go out and buy it. I'm happy with getting this game as I got it, but other people might not be. I love the shit out of this game, so for me, 60 bucks was fine.
When it comes to beer pairing, I'm going to have to go with the Breckenridge Brewery's Pandora's Bock. This is an all-around solid beer, coming in at 7.5%. It can really get you drunk fast. However, since you're playing a shooter, you're not going to have a whole lot of time to drink, so you got to be able to savor those moments in between rounds or if you die. So, I like this one as a more casual beer. It's not filled to the brim with flavor, but it'll get you just tipsy enough to enjoy your time in this creative game. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.